There will still be no spoilers for Tenet in this review. This is just my thoughts, having now seen it a second time. I said in my initial review that I think I would need to see it again to give a really proper review. Stuckman said the same thing. I think you could probably see it 3 or 4 times and still add thoughts to a non-spoiler review, so that's what I'm going to do. Now, if you've seen that initial video, don't worry, I'm not just going to go over the same stuff I did in that video. I'm just going to more talk about what a second viewing does for this film in particular, and in general from a psychological perspective. Now, if you're a regular here and you're wondering when we're going to get back to regular programming, as you might call it, I'll talk about that at the end. So, Tenet. Basically, from a few reviews that I've read, particularly in the Australian mainstream media, it's getting panned. I know that on a world scale it's being received okay. I think it's at 86% on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment, but there have been a few reviews which are saying that it is inarguably a fail. I even saw one review titled 2020 Strikes Again, Nolan's first bona fide dud. Well, I hate to say it, but you're a bona fide dumbass. Here's the thing, my first review wasn't all that positive, but I at least did have the foresight to say that it may be a case of the film being more complex than we can properly perceive on one viewing. I said that was option 1. I said that option 2 was that it just wasn't that good. I did go and see it again, and as far as I'm concerned, it's definitely option 1. This film was way more enjoyable the second time around. If you saw it once, and your conclusion then and there was it was dumb, stupid, overrated, whatever, then basically you've just proven to me that you have no capacity at all to ever conceive that you may be missing something. Your view on things in general must be something is bad, I know it's bad because I saw it once, it was bad then, it will always be bad, and therefore I don't need to watch it again. It's an extremely simplistic way of looking at the world, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not really surprised that Tenet went over your head.
Well, try and keep up.
When I was driving my friend home from the cinema after having seen it a second time, we talked about loads of different movies, but the whole time I had this inner excitement about Tenet because it was like, I thought it was a bit of a fail, but now that I've seen it again, I know that it's good and I want to see it a third time. It was a bit like that. The thing is, I think the main thing that gets better the second time you watch this is not anything film logic related. That is, it is mostly not dependent on you knowing something the second time round that you didn't know the first time round, like say with The Prestige, where when you watch it the second time, it's a totally different movie. I think that it's a little bit of that with this movie. There are some things that I picked up the second time round, and I think there will be new things that I pick up the third and even fourth time round. The other thing is, I think that the Blu-ray subtitles will come in handy with this film, because there are definitely lines that they are obscuring deliberately. I thought this the first time round, but on the second time, I confirmed it. I know that there are certain things that they are just making sure that you don't hear, because if you did hear them, it would give certain things away. Now, some people are going to criticize this. I get that it can be kind of annoying, but I kind of like it. I think it's really bold, because the alternative would be to just not show us those lines, right? And then to have a flashback later where we get to see what that character said. As a general rule, I don't like flashbacks that reveal new information. I think they're a little bit of a cheat. There are some exceptions, but generally I don't like them. I think that dialogue that is deliberately obscured in some way so that you just make sure that we can't hear it, I think that's actually really bold. So yeah, there is obviously an extent to which Tenet makes more sense the second time around, but I don't think it's that makes it a more enjoyable experience. I think it's more just that the pressure is off. Now let me explain that a little bit. Basically, I don't think that there's been a movie with this much pressure on it for a very long time. Some people might say Endgame, but I would say not really, because Endgame, yes, okay, huge budget, huge expectations, huge weight on its shoulders, but it came out at a time when cinemas were open. Tenet has all those factors, plus it's expected almost single-handedly to reopen cinemas successfully. Cinemas in lots of places all around the world have reopened, some of them almost just to show this movie. It was actually weird. Stuckman said that when he went, he got a press screening with like 5 other people in this huge cinema. That's pretty much what I got here in Australia, except that it wasn't a press screening. It's just that no one else was there on the first day of this movie's showing. I don't think people in Australia realised that cinemas had actually reopened. The one I went to the other night for the second time, it was comparatively packed at like 25 people in a smallish cinema. So cinema execs and probably movie lovers everywhere are praying that this is like the greatest movie there has ever been. And all this budget and everything all loaded on top of the fact that Nolan has basically never made a bad movie. This is just an extremely expectation-laden film. And the problem is that that pressure is actually on us, the audience. We're part of this. We're part of the people creating all this pressure. You can't just tell yourself to not expect too much from the film so that you'll enjoy it more. That's like telling yourself no pressure when you've got a big sports match or a big musical performance. It doesn't work. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had a movie just show up on TV and you decided to watch it, or some friends said, we're watching this, do you want to join us? And you've ended up really enjoying the movie? That's why. It's not just because you didn't know anything about the movie, it's also because you didn't even expect to watch a movie. Ironically, that puts you in the perfect place to watch a movie. It means that the director can have the exact effect on you that they wished to have. With Tenet, we get the exact opposite of that. We've had teasers for like a year now. We knew it was Nolan. We knew it would be big. We even knew to an extent what it was about. So with all this, unless you're extremely practiced at controlling your expectations, you're going to be let down. It's almost inevitable. And this actually snowballs because from the very first scene, you spend thinking, oh, am I enjoying this as much as I hoped? And then you miss things. And because you miss things, you don't enjoy it as much as you thought you would. And that leads you to question it even more. And you end up just sort of in this cycle of questioning things and then missing things. It's sort of like the opposite of being in the zone. You actually want to be sort of in the zone to watch a movie like this, and it's hard to do that if you're always questioning whether you're enjoying it. So the main reason that Tenet in particular requires a second viewing to appreciate even to like 70% of the level that it could be appreciated, let's not even talk about 100 yet, is just that it lifts the weight of expectation off your shoulders. And it's funny how certain things that really bothered me the first time just didn't get to me that much the second time. For example, I mentioned in my first review huge amounts of exposition. I didn't really feel that the second time around. Understanding where each scene fits in the whole scheme of things really helped the whole thing flow better. I still think there are a few scenes that are a little bit clunky, particularly the one with Michael Caine. This will probably be the most oft referred to scene as an example of pure exposition. And what's more is that the information revealed there doesn't feel particularly relevant. It's like, okay, it makes sense, but I didn't really need it. But overall, my attention was just on very different things this time around. For example, I noticed a lot of camera movements and shots that are basically just illusions, and they really play with this core concept of the film. They're not necessarily a suggestion that this concept is in play at this very moment, but they're just like a little in-joke for those who are paying attention. A little bit like the dozens and dozens of references that you get in Fight Club to what ends up being the end of that movie. I'm sure I didn't see every one in Tenet, but the ones I did see were really nice. Having said that, there are still a few things that don't seem to obey their own rules all the time. I said that in my first review, and I'm saying it again. And I am also holding to that there are some really cool outplayings of this core concept that are explained literally in a rush. That is, the characters explaining them are literally rushing. And other than runtime, I don't see why. They're such interesting ideas, they should be given a few minutes to breathe. A lot of this film feels rushed or even left out just for the sake of staying ahead of you, which is why I said in my first review that it feels like a rough draft. Having seen it a second time, I don't feel like most of it feels like a rough draft, but the bits that are deliberately kind of skipped over still do feel that way. There has been some critique of this film that says that the visual effect that the film has to keep going back to for obvious reasons just isn't that interesting after the first minute that you see it. To which I would say, you're missing the point. The visual effect is not there for visual effect's sake. It's there to convey a concept, and it does that beautifully. It's the concept that is interesting. There is one scene in particular where the visual effect is not that interesting. I'm completely with you on that. But the mental effect that it creates is insane. Stuckman said that this fight scene is not as interesting as the hotel fight scene in Inception, the no-gravity one. I would completely agree with that visually, but I think mentally, conceptually, this one is better. The premise for Inception gave it an excuse for that amazing hotel scene, as well as a bunch of other really cool scenes. I like the movie, it's there on my shelf, don't get me wrong. But with Tenet, it's been more than a week since I saw it the first time, and a day since I saw it the second time, and I'm still having those moments of like, wait, but no, what? And the other thing I really like about this film is that, like The Matrix, you can only assume that it's not actually happening. There's no way to verify whether this is real or not. It's like the tree falling in the woods. There's no way you can verify whether it makes a sound without nullifying the question. A couple of people wanted me to talk about the score, and film music is a topic that I generally avoid talking about at all because I could talk about it so in depth and just get lost in it for hours. I did music at uni, I did 3 film music electives and 2 film electives, so you don't want to hear my full thoughts on film music. But this score by Ludwig Göransson, and yes, that is how you say his name, Göransson, is really good. I really liked a lot of the moments. One particular theme has been kind of stuck in my head. It's really hard to describe, so that one. Plus the 747 moment is just beautifully scored. So big, I love it. Also, just a quick note on it being Ludwig Göransson instead of Hans Zimmer. You may know already that this is because Zimmer committed to doing Dune, which comes out a little bit later this year. And a lot of people are excited about that, and that's great. I completely agree with them. However, you should know, and this is why I don't talk about film music more often, that Denis Villeneuve was working with Johan Johansson, who tragically died a few years ago. There is no way that Zimmer would have gotten a look in on a sci-fi film like Dune if it hadn't have been for Johan Johansson dying. That guy was incredible. If you don't know his work, check out the score for Arrival, which he did with Denis Villeneuve, and the Icelandic series Trapped. Anyway, if you're watching this just wanting to know whether you should go and see Tenet or not, definitely, if it is safe to do so where you are, find the biggest cinema near you and go and watch it. If you can afford it, I would actually recommend that you go and watch it twice. But I have a tip for the first time you see it. Go in there expecting a Bond film. That's essentially what this film is. A lot of it is very Bond-esque, and deliberately so. I read that Nolan has always been inspired by certain Bond films, and this film is definitely his most obvious homage to that genre. Except that, being Nolan, he couldn't just do that. He had to throw in this whole other mind-bending idea. But for the first half of this film, that idea is sort of treated a little bit like one of Q's gadgets. They kind of just use it as a bit of a gadget for the first half, and then in the second half, it becomes more of that kind of end of the world, plot for destruction kind of thing. So the whole film isn't really like a Bond film, but if you go in with that mentality that you're going to watch a Bond film, then you'll enjoy it a lot more than if you go in expecting Interstellar. Having said that, I would have to watch his last 10 films, that's from Memento up to now, a couple of times each in order to rank them. And already I think that Tenet is very unlikely to come at the bottom of that list. I think I already prefer it to Batman Begins. Begins has some great stuff in it, don't get me wrong, I know some people love Batman Begins. Personally, I think it shows signs of a director new to the genre, because he was. But that's sort of where we're sitting. I think it's definitely not like bottom 2 or 3 in Nolan's films for me, and I think it's getting better with every watch. So if you've watched this far through, or more likely skipped to this point, then you may be wondering, why I'm spending so much time talking about what is essentially an American movie when I'm supposed to specialize in non-English language TV shows and movies. And here's the thing. If my goal is to talk about non-English language shows and movies to as many people as possible, which it is, then I can't do that by only ever talking about those shows, because of the way YouTube works means that it will never suggest a video that's about, say, a French or Dutch series to someone who only ever watches reviews of English-speaking series. So those reviews will keep coming, don't worry. I've got a review for a Belgian series coming soon. It's a really good series. I'm really looking forward to it. Also, I will be doing some crossover stuff, in particular talking about European influence on American cinema and TV. I think those videos will be a lot more interesting than my general reviews. I think you guys will really like them, and I'm really looking forward to doing them. Don't worry, I'm not going to start talking about the Lego Movie 3 and whatever. I don't care about that stuff, I don't watch it, and I don't want to talk about it. So if you've watched this far, whether you're a regular or not, well done, thank you, subscribe, watch more videos, all that stuff. See you guys next time.